Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. If you're newer to our community or we haven't had the chance to meet yet, I'm the Reverend Manish Mishra-Marzetti, serving our congregation as senior minister. It's my privilege to welcome you on behalf of myself and our chancel team today. Whether you're joining us here in person, live streaming from home or another location, or watching on demand in the week ahead, it is good that we have chosen to be together in community this Sunday. As many of you know, our congregation has been meeting continuously here in Ann Arbor since 1865, helping bring alive the vision of a free and liberal faith, one in which each of us is free to explore and discover what it means to be human as we support one another on that very human journey with our collective care and love. If you're newer to us, we're glad that you've chosen to be here today. We recognize that it takes courage to visit a community in which you may not know anybody yet, and we hope that you'll find here a like-minded people, one who share your values and your commitment to bringing those values alive in the wider world. If you're newer to us and are joining us in person following the conclusion of this Sunday service, we invite you to join us in the Redmond room, which is outside those double doors, and it's the first room on your left. There, after the end of the service, there will be members of our congregation and staff who will be available to you to answer questions about Unitarian Universalism more broadly and our congregation more specifically. If you're newer to us and are joining us in the live stream right now, we invite you to take a moment and introduce yourself in the chat. You might share where you're joining us from. We know that there'll be members of our community there who are eager to warmly welcome you into that space. If you're watching and joining us on demand at a later time this week, please know that you can contact any of us on staff, up to and including myself. Any of us would be happy to answer questions you may have and help orient you to our community. Finally, if you are newer to us, we invite you to take a moment to fill out our newcomers survey. It's at uuaa.org/newcomersurvey. Filling this out will allow us to stay in touch with you and let you know about upcoming events and activities in our congregation. A few reminders, both about this Sunday and the week ahead. This morning, our high school youth group known as YRUU, Young Religious Unitarian Universalists, they are hosting their annual apple dumpling sale. You may have smelled a little bit of that as apple dumplings as you were entering the sanctuary this morning. They're available fresh or frozen to take home with you until they run out. Later today, as you may know, we are a regular partner with Interfaith Roundtable, a local interfaith organization, and UUAA is hosting their annual Fall Thanksgiving Interfaith Service at 4 p.m. right here in our sanctuary. Some of you are regular attendees at that annual service. Please join us and know that all are welcome if you're interested in attending. In the weekend ahead, next Friday, November 21st, it is our monthly Friday fun night. If you've never attended one of these, I would make a plug and encourage you to check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's an intentionally intergenerational evening, starting with a shared meal at 5:30 p.m. This month it's a taco bowl dinner type of thing. And after that, there's usually a shared activity, and this month it'll be a service projects, plural, that are being worked on together. Following our Friday Fun Night next Friday, on Saturday and Sunday, we have activities related to something that the board is currently working on. The Board of Trustees are holding a request for ordination by a congregant who's also a former staff member, Kiana Dene Perkins. It's something that the congregation will be voting on in January. In support of that vote, there's an opportunity next weekend to get to know Kiana Dene, or get to know her now that she's been in the process of becoming a minister, get reacquainted and learn what that ministry journey has been like. On Saturday, November 22nd, the board is hosting a town hall from 10 to 11. It's in person here at the congregation. It's also possible to join online, and if you prefer to join remotely, please contact the office. They'll give you additional information on how to register for that. Following the Saturday town hall, on Sunday, November 22nd, Kiana Dene will be with us in person and available in the social hall following both services for a meet and greet to give you a chance to get reacquainted with her in advance of the vote that will be happening in January. Last but not least, a week from today, next Sunday, is also annual Pie Sunday. This is a tradition that started during my sabbatical. We thank Sabbatical Minister Kimberly Dibus for bringing this to us. Now, who doesn't like pie? We all love pie. And so the concept is simple. Bring a savory or sweet pie, whichever you like. Just the only rule is no nuts. And it's very helpful if you can bring an ingredient list. Give your pie and your ingredient list in the social hall prior to the service that you attend, and then you get to enjoy all kinds of pies after the service until they run out. So we hope you'll join us next Sunday for annual Pie Sunday. And now, as we prepare to move more deeply in our time together this morning, would you join me in a brief centering breath, a moment to pause and ground ourselves in the love and intention of community. As we move more deeply into our time together today, we'll be focusing on our congregation's partnership with Unitarians in the Transylvanian region of modern-day Romania. This may be new to you, the fact that there are Unitarians in other parts of the world, and or the fact that our congregation has relationships with Unitarians outside the United States. If so, we're delighted that you'll have the chance in today's service to learn more about one such historic connection, our congregation's connection with the Hungarian Unitarians of Transylvania. This past September, our congregation sent a delegation to our Transylvania partner church, which is the Unitarian Church in Kezdi-Vásárhely. There'll be a quiz on how to pronounce that later, but I'll give you a helpful hint in English. Can we all say Kezdi? Kezdi. That's the name of the town or location, and Vásár means market, Hey means place. So it's the Kezdi Marketplace, or Kezdi Market Center is the name of the specific town, and our partner church is the church in Kezdi Marketplace, Kezdi-Vásárhely. This morning we'll hear from delegation members from our congregation who had an opportunity to travel to Transylvania as we learn more about this relationship and its importance and meaning for our community. Returning to our breath, returning to the pause that we can always take as we're nurturing and building community together, we are gathered for worship.
Good morning. Across the state, the country, and around the world, UUs are gathering in spirit, in person, and online to celebrate their connections and bear witness to the transformational power of love. Ever a symbol of our UU faith, the chalice serves as a beacon of light, drawing people towards a community that uplifts, supports, and nurtures growth, change, and empathy. Because our faith does not demand a single belief or way to worship, we bring our individual hearts and minds together each Sunday for a focused, intentional, and spiritual gathering. We believe it is good to be together, knowing that our separate fires will kindle one flame. At this time, I'd like to invite Kathy and Mike Muha to light the chalice here in the sanctuary. And for those of you joining us online, please ready your own chalice as we prepare to say these familiar chalice lighting words together. We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Thank you, Kathy and Mike. Each week when we gather, we bring all of ourselves into the sanctuary. All of our adventures, all of our sorrows, all of our joys, and all of our experiences of the world. Without diluting a single drop of our individual authenticity, we come together as one community, dedicated to growth, love, justice, and equality. We understand, through our experiences of the world, that peace, love, and helpfulness are what's needed to ensure every being is supported, nurtured, and encouraged to grow. In harmony with our chalice lighting, which calls us to action, our covenant reminds us of our commitment to each member of this community and to ourselves. Please join me in re-engaging with our congregational covenant. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another.
In honor of Unitarian Universalism's global past, present, and future, a story in the oral tradition celebrating the light of truth and the flame of love. A Lamp in Every Corner by Janine K. Grossmeyer. Many years ago, in the land of Transylvania, in a mountain valley watered by quick rushing streams and shadowed by great forests of beech trees, there was a village of small wooden houses with dark shingled roofs. The people in the village were of Unitarian religion, and they wanted a church of their own, set on the hillside, looking down upon the village as a parent looks down upon their sleeping child. So all the people of the village labored long and hard to build themselves a church. And at the end of the day, when their work was finally done, all the people of the village stood back to admire it, and then to sing a song of happiness and praise. Their village had a church now, a church set on the hillside, looking down upon the village as a parent looks down upon their sleeping child. "We will eat now," announced an elder of the village, because everyone was hungry after their long day's work. "And later tonight, we will come back to pray." So the people of the village went down the hillside to their homes and their suppers, all except one little girl named Zora and her father, who stayed behind. They had brought their own bread and cheese. After they'd eaten, they went back inside, opening carved wooden doors to go into the gloriously painted sanctuary inside. "Oh, look, Father," Zora cried. "See how pretty the church is." "Yes, it is," said her father, looking around and nodding with pride. "But Father," she said suddenly, "we have not finished. There are tall iron lampstands all along the walls. But there are no lamps. The church will be dark when the people come back." "Ah, no, little one," said her father. "The light of the church comes from its people. You shall see." He rang the bell to call the people to worship, then took his daughter by the hands and led her back outside. The sun had set behind the mountains and night was coming soon. Yet in the growing darkness, tiny points of light came from many directions and moved steadily up the hill. "Each family is entrusted with a lamp, little one," explained her father. "Each family lights its own way here." the many lights moved closer together, gathering in one moving stream, all headed the same way, growing larger and brighter all the time. Zora's mother arrived, bearing their family's burning oil lamp in her hands. The father lifted Zora so she could set the lamp high in its tall iron stand. All around the church, other families were doing the same. Soon, the church was ablaze with light in every corner. When the service was over, Zora's father lifted her high. She took the shining bronze lamp from the stand. Her mother carried the lamp home, with the flame lighting the way. "Mother," Zora began as she climbed into bed and lay down. "Yes, little one?" her mother asked, tucking the red wool blanket around Zora's shoulders. "Father said the light of the church comes from its people." "Yes, indeed," said her mother. "And even when we are not in church, even when the lamp is not lit, we carry the light of truth in our minds and the flame of love in our hearts to show us the right way to be. When you are grown, we will give the bronze lamp to you. And when your children are grown, you will give the lamp to them. And all of you will carry it back and forth to church every time." "But there is only one lamp," Zora said. "So make another and let the light grow. And someday tell your children to make more lamps too. And now, good night." Zora closed her eyes and drifted into dreams, while her mother looked down upon her sleeping child. The years passed and Zora grew. The bronze lamp came into her care, and when the bell rang out across the valley to call the people to worship, she carried the lamp back and forth to the church on the hillside, the flame always lighting her way. When the time came, she made more lamps and gave them to her children, who made more lamps and gave them to their children. And so it went on through the years, until even today. And always, the light of truth and the flame of love from that Unitarian church on the hillside continued to grow and show them and us the way. The end. Now is the time in our service when we say goodbye to the children and youth that are among us. Let us sing together as they wake their way out of the sanctuary with their adult leaders. Let's go to Foz Chapel.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Once a month, we make time in our service to learn a little bit more about the important social justice work that our community is engaged in. We call this a social justice connection time. This month, we'll be hearing from Joe Libin and Kyla Boyce, who are members of the Jackson Social Welfare Fund, who will share more about that fund and the good work that it does.
Morning. Joe is a co-chair of the committee. I'm a former co-chair and current member. Chances are you've heard something about the Jackson Social Welfare Fund, but you may be unsure exactly what it is. The Jacksons were a wealthy couple who lived near our former building on Washtenaw, and they were longtime members of the congregation and staunch supporters of civil liberties. As they aged, they increasingly relied on Reverend Ed and Annette Redmond for comfort and pastoral care. George Jackson died in 1955, and Bessie had died a couple years earlier. They set aside a generous portion of their estate in 2 bequests to our congregation. The first provided capital funds for the church. The second created the Jackson Social Welfare Fund. Our investments committee manages these funds outside of the UUAA budget.
The Jackson Fund bequest requires that we use its income to advance 2 goals. The first being understanding and acceptance of the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, and the second is promoting peaceful means of conflict resolution. The First Amendment guarantees us freedom of religion, free speech, and press, the right to assemble peacefully, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Each year, the Jackson Fund Committee asks organizations to send us proposals that align with this mission established by the Jacksons. We evaluate these proposals and award grants. Our committee is doubly special in that it includes 6 members from our congregation and 2 from the Ann Arbor Friends Meeting.
Jackson Social Welfare Fund grants have helped many hundreds of organizations over 7 decades. We've been able to disperse about $30,000 each of the last 5 years, usually to about 10 to 12 different organizations each year.
We have supported Americans United for Separation of Church and State, Defending Rights and Dissent, the Disability Network, Ground Cover News, ICPJ, Nonprofit Enterprise at Work, Safe and Just Michigan, and 3 Quaker-based projects. This year, we awarded 10 grants in varying amounts, totaling $31,820. Our long-standing support for well-known First Amendment organizations continues, and new grants lend support for immigrant rights, rights for incarcerated individuals, those experiencing homelessness, and the rights of people with disabilities.
As our congregation works to realize our Vision 2050 goals, we've talked about all the ways we can work together to forge a more just and peaceful world. The Jacksons' legacy is one way we try to do that. 70 years since its inception, the Jackson Social Welfare Fund remains a robust, steadfast means to advance the principles of the First Amendment and peaceful resolution of conflicts.
The Jacksons issued a call that rings down through the decades, and they also gave us the financial means to answer it. We will continue to seek on-mission proposals and make grants that help our congregation live out its UU principles, building a better community, region, and nation.
There are many moving parts and people essential to the smooth operation of the UU congregation. We all have different gifts, talents, and expertise we can share, and that is evident by the volunteers who planned all the logistics for the partnership tour to Transylvania. And just as important are the financial gifts we can offer. When I first came to services here, I was sitting with a friend, and I felt so bad not to be able to contribute anything. And she whispered to me, "Maybe not today, but you will when you can." And she was right. If you can contribute today, it is very much appreciated. And if for whatever reason you can't today, let the baskets pass you by and know that your being here in community with all of us is truly a gift. There are many ways you can give. You may give online at uuaa.org/giving. You may text UUAA to 73256, and you may leave a check or cash in the offering baskets. As the ushers come forward, we thank you in advance for your generosity. And today's collection will now be gratefully given and received. That was great. As the ushers come forward, please rise in body or spirit, and with gratitude and generosity, speak the words we use to dedicate our offering. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are offerings. Thank you.
As we transition now into learning a bit more about our historic connection with the Unitarians in Transylvania, our intention, our plan was that we'd start out and you'd hear from Phyllis Valentine, the chair of our Transylvania Partnership Committee here in the congregation, about the relationships that our community has forged over many decades, followed by me, in which I'd share a little bit about the history, specifically of Unitarianism in that region, a little musical interlude, and then vignettes from the delegation members, including Greg Peterson and Lori Reese. Phyllis Valentine can't be with us this morning, so in Phyllis's stead, Lee Boki-Burke, who has traveled to Transylvania many times and whose relationships there are deep, will share Phyllis's reflections with us. Would you welcome Lee into the pulpit?
Good morning. I know Phyllis would really dearly love to be here. Unfortunately, that couldn't happen this morning, but this trip would never have happened without her. Her love, tremendous, brilliant organization and passion helped put it together. But these are her words. It's a little bit about how our partnership began. Our partnership grew out of connections made by the Reverend Ken Pfeiffer with Transylvanian Unitarians at a GA in the mid-90s. Inspired by how they had kept their movement alive for centuries through wars and decades of communism, Ken promoted the idea of UUAA joining the Partner Church program. A congregational vote in May of 1997 began our journey together. In 28 years of changes in ministers, buildings, and circumstances for both of us, our partnership has remained strong through the personal connections we continue to make with our partners in faith. In 1999, while in Germany to speak at the European UU Convention, Reverend Ken traveled to Kezdi-Vásárhely, Romanian, for the first time. He was accompanied by Barbara Lynn, who was then living in Germany. They were welcomed by the Reverend Maria Pop, her husband, their young daughter, Abigail, and the board chair, Ildiko Books, and her family. It took time to develop our friendship. Gretchen Jackson took leadership in the year 2001 and established regular communication. In the early years, small groups traveled to Kezdi to help with maintenance on the parsonage. We helped purchase an apartment to use as a meeting space. Fran Lyman visited one summer to teach English. Ildiko Lestjan's son, Attila, practiced English with Bill Mom and learned to make chocolate chip cookies with Gretchen. We were welcomed into their homes and apartments. The Reverend David Keyes, an interim minister, promoted a pilgrimage in 2008. 17 people visited major Unitarian sites in Hungary and Romania, and then our friends in Kezdi and the village. That trip set the tone for future visits and also encouraged us to sponsor visits from our partners and tour guides. There have been 4 pilgrimages since then. We have had visits from our partner church ministers and their families. In 2010, we began to support the minister financially when her salary, paid by the government, was cut by 25%. We also began to sponsor room and board scholarships for 2 university students. In 2011, we vowed to visit every 3 years, traveling in small groups. It was great to reunite with our partners and their children. Here's Gretchen in a minute with Attila in 2011. Great photo. Following Rev Maria's visits to Ann Arbor earlier, Reverend Istvan visited in 2013 and returned with his wife Chila in October 2017 at Halloween. Here's Rev Istvan on his first visit. Yeah. When we visited in 2018, Attila Lestjan took time from his PhD studies in Budapest to come to Kezdi. Our planned travel for 2021 was halted by COVID, and we met via Zoom. Language barriers were forgotten when we saw each other's faces. And Facebook became a major way of sharing our lives and activities. In Ann Arbor, working remotely, we made a quilt for Istvan and Chila's new baby and gathered signatures on the quilt squares. We sent off a big box of gifts for Christmas. We've supported their many, many charitable projects the best we could. Over the years, we have been deeply moved by our partners, by their generosity of spirit and goodwill, by how their faith sustains them in the face of adversity. They continue to inspire us.
Thank you, Lee, and thank you to Phyllis. Phyllis was so good about reminding me that the heart of these connections, these partnerships, are the relationships themselves. And the relationships exist within so many dimensions. There's It's a relationship across culture. It's a relationship across physical distance in a foreign land with language barriers and different history, different theological and religious, spiritual context. So I want to share a little bit with you today about the historical and theological context, which is zooming out from the specific relationships, but more like what's this environment that we're connected to. And there are two obvious questions, particularly for those who may not know the history of Eastern Europe deeply or well. How are there Hungarian people in Romania? That's an obvious first question. The short answer to that is they were there before Romania existed as a state, but let me go into that just a little bit. The Hungarian people in the 9th and 10th century conquered what's known as the Carpathian Basin. So the Carpathian Mountains in Eastern Europe, the low-lying valleys and lowlands around that, are the basin. And as the Hungarians conquered that region, they shifted some of their own population, encouraged them to move into these newly acquired lands as border guards, as frontier guards, guarding the new borders of what was to become, by about the year 1000, the Kingdom of Hungary. And in this time period, the Hungarians were Christian. And you may remember from European history, the capital of Christianity at this time period was Constantinople, governed by the Byzantine Empire. All of that changes with just a few centuries. The Byzantine Empire falls. The Ottoman Empire is ascendant and becomes a dominant force, threatening the Kingdom of Hungary. And in 1526, the Ottomans defeat the Hungarians in a significant battle. Out of this emerges a political crisis. What's left of Hungary and who's ruling it? The Ottomans take a piece, the Habsburgs take a piece, and the Hungarians living in Transylvania arrive at a very clever political agreement with the Ottomans. They agree to ally with the Ottomans and not cause any problems. In return, the Ottomans grant them semi-independence. They get to be like a principality. Thus, Transylvania as a political entity is born, and János Sigismund, in English, John Sigismund, becomes its king, the head of this principality. Later, subsequent to World War I, Transylvania is declared, interestingly, by the Romanians. The Romanians declare that Transylvania is a part of Romania. All right, this leads to another interesting question. That explains how Hungarians wind up in Romania. But how are those Hungarians Unitarian? How did that happen? What is that about? Well, this king of Transylvania, King János Sigismund, around 1566, he meets a priest named Ferenc Dávid. In English, we call him Francis David. Francis David had been an ordained Catholic priest, and he subsequently joins the Reformation movement and rises to being a bishop in the Calvinist church in Transylvania, and he's deputed to be an advisor to King Sigismund. As the Calvinist bishop in Transylvania, Francis David's personal theology continues to evolve, and he comes to no longer believe in the Trinity. Not a big deal for us modern-day Unitarian Universalists, but back then in the Middle Ages, this was a very big deal, and it led to theological controversy. The king, intrigued by this theological controversy, wanted to figure out what he personally thought about the whole thing. So he invited a series of theological debates that included Catholics and Lutherans, Calvinists, and this new group of anti-Trinitarians that didn't even have a name yet. While the initial debates were not conclusive, the king liked the fact that they could openly talk about all of these things. He was convinced about the importance of open and free religious dialogue and debate. And thus, in 1568, the Edict of Torda is issued. It's the first edict of religious tolerance in Western Christianity. Now, it sometimes is referred to as the first edict of religious tolerance anywhere, like in world history. not true. There are others that precede this. And in terms of what it is in terms of religious tolerance, it's not the way we would think about it today, that religious tolerance means anyone is welcome to believe what they want to believe. This edict from 1568, it covered Catholic and Protestant Christians, so it didn't cover Jewish folk, Muslim folk, or Orthodox Christians. And it pertained to the clergy being able to disagree with one another and hold dissenting opinions from one another. It didn't really speak to the laity. But what it did do is it helped King Sigismund protect his friend for a while, Francis David, because Francis David was clergy. This region of Eastern Europe thus becomes a bastion of religious liberal thinking for a while. It's a place where dissenting and differing religious opinions were allowed and to a certain degree protected. The date of the Edict of Torda, 1568, is considered the birth date of Transylvanian Unitarianism, and you see this date everywhere. It's in every single church and every single Unitarian building of significance. Today, the Hungarian Unitarians are themselves a minority within Transylvania. Larger cities are majority Romanian, and most Hungarians living in Transylvania are not Unitarian. They are more so Catholic or Calvinist. Yet, still to this day, smaller villages exist where the majority of people might be Hungarian and Unitarian. There are about 80,000 Hungarian Unitarians in Transylvania today, and about 140 Unitarian places of worship. As the Transylvanian Unitarians would point out themselves, the connection between them and us is not a direct straight line. It's a connection of intellectual history and theological affinity. So what do we mean by that? We mean that Francis David and others were inspired by generations of liberal Christian thinkers that came before them, and they became, in the Middle Ages, the inspiration that would carry on to future generations in Europe, generations of liberal thinkers to come, including in places like the United Kingdom, where, when that liberal religious thinking took root, the thinking in the UK exported and came to influence North America and became the foundation of what we now know as Unitarian Universalism here in North America. So it's not a lineage of direct institutional history that we were all part of a denomination that was called Unitarianism and the denomination spread in a linear fashion. It wasn't that. It was more so this intellectual similarity of thinking that we find agreement with, and theological affinity. Nonetheless, we hold each other dear to this day. The Hungarian Unitarians see us as kin, they consider us family, and we see them exactly the same way. They are family to us.
Well, it's dawn on a Sunday morning in Transylvania. It's a special morning of Thanksgiving and communion, one of only 4 communion services a year at the Unitarian churches there. But it's early, so I'm planning a walk, alone, a return visit to a stunning medieval church a few kilometers away. I managed to get my coffee at that early hour thanks to our wonderful innkeeper. I call her my coffee goddess, but I'm thankful for more than coffee. I came to Transylvania seeking a deeper understanding of the roots of our faith and hoping to glean how the Christian Unitarianism of Transylvania might relate to my Lutheran upbringing, as well as to my lifelong wonderings about something often called God. But what I'm receiving is more profound, a feeling of gratitude and peace, a sense that I was meant to be here in this moment. I'm on a pilgrimage. We all are. But what does that mean? In her book, Wanderlust, A History of Walking, one of my favorite authors, Elizabeth Solnit, writes, pilgrimage is one of the fundamental structures a journey can take, the quest in search of something, if only one's own transformation. It is premised on the idea that the sacred is not entirely immaterial, but that there is a geography of spiritual power. I walk past modest houses with carved wooden front gates, past small farms and gardens, surprisingly still in bloom, past a farmer's market already bursting with produce, right to the tower and stone walls guarding this beautiful small white church. The gate to that church is open. It's a gateway to a perfect kind of peace and goosebumps. As a child, I often felt that peace toward the end of a service, especially when there was communion. The feeling wasn't about a Holy Spirit or a specific religious teaching. It was simpler, a feeling of acceptance and belonging to a community of people who cared for one another, much as I feel here today. As I gazed at that ancient church, I understood that people need these sacred places, have needed them, have created them for centuries. Perhaps the geography of spiritual power knows no religion or irony, but I'm standing in a Catholic churchyard giving thanks to our Unitarian ancestors for all they persisted through, the domination of the Catholic Church, of Calvinism, the persecution of their leaders, ethnic prejudice, communism, and extreme poverty. Also gratitude that our Transylvanian ancestors, as long ago as 1568, believed so deeply in religious tolerance, however limited, that they were willing to die for it, and they did. A little later, we UU pilgrims sit in the front pews of our partner church sanctuary. It's the shared home of a Lutheran congregation. We are honored guests, and the music begins, and Reverend Istvan plays the guitar and sings like an angel. It's a joyful song. It feels like Thanksgiving. And later, communion. Reverend Manish serving the bread, Reverend Istvan the wine from a shared cup. It's a not flaming chalice. There is no such symbol in Transylvanian Unitarianism. But I have more goosebumps. I've come home to where I was meant to be, at least for today. Edios Isten. That means God is one. We saw this inscription inside or on the face of almost every Unitarian church we visited. It's the big idea that launched our Unitarian faith. Maybe it's worth honoring. I'm not afraid to ponder God. I believe in metaphors. I believe there's something beyond ourselves and our understanding that can be tapped for wisdom and clarity about what is real and true, and that it is a source of our creativity, of our ideas about how to make the world more beautiful and just. I believe that a search for God or for our personal truth is a meaningful way to live a life, and as good as any reason to come to Transylvania. Thank you.
I met Miklios, Shoshana, and Kate at our first dinner with our partnership congregants. I was a bit concerned how we were going to get to know each other without a common language. They speak Hungarian, a very complex language, but a few of them did know a bit of English. We each introduced ourselves except Shoshana, who, when it was her turn to introduce herself, kind of went, ah. So when Kate told us about her family, she mentioned her adult daughter's age, so I used gestures too. I went, sort of pointing to myself and nodding, and she understood that I have an adult daughter the same age as hers. Miklios introduced me to the Google Translate app. Now, that was a game changer. We could talk about anything if we were patient. In one conversation, Miklios told me they had lived through communism and it wasn't pretty. Now, I'm paraphrasing. He said he understood why we Americans, especially Unitarians, were finding it to be turbulent times in America. Someone said, ooh, don't talk politics. But we weren't really. It was just a moment to commiserate, and I'm so glad we did. I was comforted knowing that they have an idea what's happening here. We hadn't yet learned where they got their news and whether it was polite to even ask them. While we were touring a church, I found Shoshana sitting alone in a pew. And though she didn't speak English, she would be able to help us. So Quincy and I approached her. We really wanted to learn the correct pronunciation of all these city names. So I said, Cluj? And see, that's the city that we flew into. And she shook her head, no, that's the Romanian name. What we want is Koloshvar. And then our partnership city, of course, was important. How hard can this be? Shoshana would say it, and we went back and forth practicing, and Quincy got the pronunciation first, and I eventually did. But I just found out a few minutes ago that I have it wrong. Okay, so what I had remembered was Kezdi Varshahe. It's Kezdi Vasharhe. The R was in the wrong spot all this time. So, anyway, I've got the R in the wrong place, but I'm not being quizzed on this. You are. Anyway, the whole exchange with Shoshana, and not really, speaking to her, but we were communicating. It was really quite fun and one of my favorite moments for sure. Shoshana's husband, Miklios, and I had several conversations. Once we were outside this flower shop in a rural area. He said, I think you will like this, and he walked me over to this vending machine for milk that came straight from a cow, right on the sidewalk on a quiet street in a village. Unpasteurized, 6% fat milk from Daisy Mae and Dolly up the hill were brought down to this refrigerator on the sidewalk. So people could come up and pay and pour. They'd fill up their empty water bottles. Miklios was spot on. I absolutely got a kick out of this vending machine, and I was so happy that he knew I would. Oh, and there's a picture afterwards in the social hall. We do have a picture of the vending machine. In a Google translation with my new friend Kate, I learned that she lives on a lake. And I shared with her that I grew up in Minnesota where there are many, many, many lakes everywhere, and how I love an evening with my feet up, a glass of wine, and admiring the lake with a friend. And she immediately invited me to stay with her if I ever returned. And literally at the same moment, we both looked at each other and went, girls trip, girls trip. Mother-daughter girls trip. She's the one with the daughter the same age. So mother-daughter's girls trip. I have not told my daughter this yet. For the Thanksgiving service that we all attended, Reverend Ifston played his guitar, and he had the whole congregation, all of us singing the Hungarian lyrics that were projected up on the wall to Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. You know the one, the baffled king composing Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We were singing it in Hungarian. Didn't matter if we got the words right. We were enjoying being there and singing with these lovely people, and we're swaying with the music. I looked around at the whole congregation. Miklios, Shoshana, and Kate each acknowledged me with a nod and a smile. We all continued singing. Reverend Ishvan must have spent a lot of time thinking about what and how to sing with his American guests. He nailed it. Hallelujah. It was really beautiful, and honestly, I got a little bit choked up. We were then given a chance, anyone was given a chance to address the entire congregation. Now, I am what is called an enthusiastic extrovert. Thank you. It's really a term, by the way. It's sometimes a challenge not to always participate. And I don't even know the language, but I still stood up and I used hand emojis to communicate. Thank you, Google Translate. They laughed at that, they liked it. And then I just did the love. I really appreciated this experience being on the partnership tour. I learned about Unitarianism, of course, language, history, art, and brutalist architecture? Oh, aptly named. I loved getting to know my fellow UUAAs better. Good people, wonderful folks, and I am in the right space here. And what is really quite special is the kinship we developed with our new friends at the Unitarian Church in Kesdi-Vasharhe. Our new friends in Kesdi-Vasharhe. Hallelujah.
Thank you both. Thank you, Greg, for sharing your sense of personal space and the intimacy and spirituality of being there, and Lori for your sense of the interactions and the depth and the meaning of those connections and how you forged them too. Beautiful, beautiful reflections. You know, being on this delegation really reminded me that it had been quite a break since we last really were actively nurturing, cultivating with delegations the relationships in our congregation's foreign partnerships. We were getting through the pandemic, and then the other side of the pandemic, the many things that needed to be taken care of and managed and handled. And it was being there in person that I really got to see they missed us. They really, really missed us. And we're so glad we were there. It meant a lot to them. More than I could have imagined or guessed. And it was so touching and meaningful for me. You know, while I was still there, I'm writing back to the leaders of our Khasi Hills partnership. We have another partnership. It's a partnership with a school with the Unitarian Indians in the region called Khasi Hills in Northeast India, and encourage them to begin thinking about a future delegation that we can send to the Khasi Hills in support of our partnership there. We're talking about fall of 2027. Not that far away. I know that sounds like it is, but it's an expensive trip. It takes some thought and preparation and planning to make that happen. We're already planning our next return visit to Kesdi-Vasharhe in Transylvania, which would be, we want to go around the same timing. So again, that was end of September of this year. We're thinking end of September of 2028. So it's not too early to be putting these things on your mental calendars if they're of interest. Truly, we welcome those who are interested, you know, to get engaged and support our community's work in this international relationship building. It really matters, and it supports this tradition of free thinking and nurturing liberal religious thinking globally.
Please rise in body or in spirit and open to 148, Let Freedom Span Both East and West. Hymn 148, Let Freedom Span Both East and West. Let freedom span both east and west, and love both south and north, in universal
freedoms span both east and west, and love both north and south. You know, we are inheritors of a tradition, a way of thinking, a way of being in community, religious, spiritual community, that is not ours alone. Others before us, countless generations before us, fought for the freedom to think and be together in the ways that we are. We're inheritors of that. And as inheritors of that, part of our calling is to nurture it and keep it alive for future generations. We support others all around the world who hold the same affinity as us, the same calling. So I invite you to go forth into this new week, knowing that you're not alone, that they are Unitarians and Universalists all around this planet that we are deeply and well connected to, and that you are part of nurturing the next generation of both Unitarianism and Universalism. Go in love, go in peace, until we are together again. Amen.